Have you ever been told that you're really mature for your age, or you grew up really fast, or you're the strong one, especially when you were a child? And maybe as a child, that kind of felt like a compliment, but as an adult, it feels a little bit more like a life sentence, like you're stuck in this role, taking care of other people forever. If that's you, today in this episode, we're going to be talking about something that will bring definition to the internal feelings that you've been carrying for a very long time. And the word is parentification. Don't worry, we're not bashing your parents today. I love parents. I love my parents, and I am one too. The truth is that we're all trying our best and accidentally ruining our kids' life just a little bit, right? There's no such thing as perfect parent. It's just us being human. But naming something honestly is often the first step to your freedom. Hi, my name is Dr. Uejin Kim. I'm a Christian child and adult psychiatrist who cares more about what's right with you than what's wrong with you. A lot of high achievers don't know where their thirst and drive for excellence and achievement started. They thought that it's just who they are. But actually, when you dig a little bit deeper into their history, there is a mechanism of adaptation because they started to believe at young age that if I make sure that everybody else is okay and everything is okay, then I'm okay. And that worked, survived and thrived. And you are managing a lot of different things and doing it so well. But the high achiever's nervous system is as fragile as an 8-year-old who feels responsible for world peace. So let's slow down the process of parentification and define some terms and understand it together. So point number one, what is a parentified child? The term parentification was introduced by family therapist Ivan Bosnormany in the 1960s. It simply describes a role reversal. The child start meeting the parents' need when parents was supposed to meet the child's needs. So there's two main types of parentification. Number one is instrumental parentification, and number two is emotional parentification. Instrumental parentification, the roles that child might have to cover is taking care of the younger siblings, cooking, cleaning, and having the logistics figured out, and being a little strategic adult. Emotional parentification is being a therapist for your parents or elder, or mediators in fights, or the one that has to keep everybody regulated and stable. Now, here's a key difference from normal responsibility as a child is growing. The thing is that when a child is parentified, this roles that they're playing, whether it's instrumental or emotional, is not just occasional. Like, for example, if the mom is crying and distraught at her mom's or her parents' funeral, a child can actually step up and offer condolences or comfort to the mom. Now, these are the examples of child stepping up to take care of parents' needs occasionally. But parentification is the pattern that this role reversal is happening over a long period of time. So since it's a chronic state and pattern of the role reversal, a child doesn't have a space, an opportunity to be a child. So as a parentified child grows up to be an adult, since this pattern continued and they're never allowed to be a child and mess up, and they're holding the family's regulation and function on their shoulders, it means that I have to regulate everybody, take care of everybody, and feel everybody so that I can be useful and everybody's okay. Therefore, I'm okay. Now, if you can imagine living in this way and your worth and your safety is related to how everybody else is doing, this is impossible to maintain and also very tiring to maintain. So point number two, is this parentification or is it trauma like abuse or neglect? And a lot of times when I talk about parentified childhood, the high achievers or the hyper responsible ones are like, well, when I say that it's a little t trauma, they say, no, it's not trauma. It's just how it was. And everybody has to do that. So let me just clarify the difference between parentification and trauma and abuse. Because most commonly the response I get is, but they love me. They took us to a vacation, or other people had it worse and I shouldn't complain. I had every one of my needs met. I had food, shelter, and clothing, and I got great education. This is very common response. So there's similarity and differences between parentification and trauma, like abuse and neglect. So similar to trauma, parentification does produce a chronic stress on the nervous system. So just like trauma, a parentified child might have fight or flight response to a triggering event or consequences. And similar to trauma, parentified childhood can produce lack of safety and attunement and connectedness internally and externally. For example, people who say, I'm not sad, like, why are you saying that I'm sad when there's like tears rolling down their eyes? There's a huge disconnect and dissociation of how they are and how other people are because they're so attuned to task and what needs to be done. And similar to trauma, the consequence of parentified childhood is not just spurts of things, it has a very long-term consequences on emotional health as well. But there are some differences between parentified childhood and trauma. Now, these can still overlap, but hear me out. Parentified childhood is really tough to narrow down because, unlike clear abuse and neglect, parentified child is really this mixture of well intended parenting or lack of capacity from well-intended parents and a lot of roles got missed and the child had to step up. So feeling and saying that your parents parentified you might really feel more awkward and wrong to say than clearly there was abuse and neglect in your childhood. And sometimes the parentified childhood is invisible because maybe, especially if you were the emotional parentified child and you're taking care of everybody's emotional needs and you didn't really perform the instrumental, then the parents or the family or somebody else can say, well, you didn't feed us. I was providing the education and shelter and clothing for you. So you weren't parentified. So a lot of times that subtle roles can get invisible. So if you had a parentified childhood, you're kind of stuck because you're like, well, they didn't do anything wrong, but why do I still feel wrong inside? And that can get really confusing. And the clinical answer is pretty simple. Impact matters as much as the intent. So even though your parents didn't intend for you, it's important to recognize the impact of their choices. And it's not to blame, and we'll talk about that in the future episodes, but it's just to tell your truth. And a good reframing question that I ask a lot is, would you wish your childhood on anyone else? And a lot of times, this is where the parentified child get real. They're like, no, it was kind of hard. Now, why would that be if your childhood was that great? Right. So knowing, being honest and objective about the childhood experiences actually is a key to honesty and freedom and healing in the future. So is everybody parentified? Because there's no such thing as perfect parents. Occasionally all parents needed to be, had moments of weakness or lacking capacity and the child had to step in. So this is a very common point, and this is point number 3. Another way to look at it was the child occasionally comforting parents when parents were weak and needed help, or was the child the comfort for the parents? So no, nobody's perfect. There's no such thing as parents being perfect, but there is a difference being your childhood being parentified. So if this symptoms of parentified childhood feels like you, and you tend to be a very high achiever, overcompensator, or hyper responsible one, everybody's problem kind of falls really heavy on your shoulder. I just want you to know that there's nothing wrong with you to always often feel the burden and sense of responsibility for other people's problems. Sometimes things just happen to you in your childhood before you had words for it. So here's a quiet hope that I want you to leave with. Identifying your childhood as parentified childhood doesn't mean that you blame your parents or rewriting your childhood and make them the villain. It's finally understanding why you felt responsible for everything, even if nothing was actually that bad or that horrible. And I think spiritually, we know that our level of sense of responsibility cannot be sustained. Like, I cannot live like this and worry about everybody. So spiritually, I think God's heart here is very simple. Is you don't have to hold everyone and everything together for you to feel safe and be loved. And if that kind of feels icky or weird or awkward, that's okay. We can learn this unfamiliar concept of healing together. So I hope that this episode clarified some definitions of your childhood, maybe confusing points in your childhood for you. And thank you for listening to this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.